engineering is one of the disciplines that can change the world. Engineers make things that have tangible impact to the environment and to the society.
Diverse minds are what gives us different approaches to problem solving. And I think some of the best solutions that we get come from different perspectives on the problem.
As engineers, we have very complex challenges to solve for society, and the only way we can come up with appropriate solutions is if we really do consider all people within our society.
We just need to make sure that we look after the planet and we look after each other. And if we instill that into our students, then I'm very optimistic on the future.
Welcome to AI from Imagination to Reality, presented by UNSW, the Faculty of Engineering at the University of New South Wales and the UNSW AI Institute. My name is Wilson De Silva. I'm a science journalist and editor, and I'll be your host for this evening. But first, let me begin by acknowledging the Gadigal people, who are the traditional custodians of this land. I would like to pay my respects to the elders, both past and present, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who are present. Tonight we're going to talk about artificial intelligence, the promise, both its promise and its potential perils. There's been a lot of discussion about AI, some of it confused, some of it breathless, and some of it hype. Luckily, we have tonight eminent experts with us who will sort out the real-world benefits from the potential hazards that may lie ahead. But before we begin, I would like to introduce you to Professor Ian Gibson, Deputy Dean of Industry Engagement, Innovation and Research at UNSW Engineering, who is going to set the stage. Ian, please.
Thanks, Wilson. Good evening. It's great to see you all here tonight. First thing we're going to do is an audience participation task, so I apologise for that. Put up your hand if you used ChatGPT today. I think it's about half of us. I did. I had a task to do today, and that was to set the scene for generative AI panel. So, of course, the first thing I did is I went to ChatGPT and asked it to generate one. It did a pretty good job. It was polite. It was grammatically immaculate, of course. You've all seen that. And it was quite comprehensive, but it was terribly boring. It was unusable. So from an imagination perspective, I don't think ChatGPT passed that particular test. Anyway, recently we have seen that generative AI improves everyone's ability to do their assignments, write their business reports. It can create reasonably convincing pictures of popes in puffer jackets. You've probably seen those. And I heard today, apparently, one more Beatles record. That's not too bad. So if I could generate a photorealistic picture of a pope in a puffer jacket and generate a Beatles record, I'd be pretty happy with myself already. But we've also seen that many high-profile technologists are warning that AI will lead to the end of democracy, no less, and even the extinction of the human race. So we probably should pay attention. But I have found one field of human endeavour where, as far as I can tell, generative AI tools are not even close to being convincing yet. So our expert panel over here will tell you how good they are, and they're good at some things, but I've found one thing, that they're hopeless. A wise, experienced public speaker once told me that whenever you stand up to speak in front of a crowd, make sure you either start off with a joke or apologise for something. Okay, so I asked my favourite generative AI tool to come up with a joke about generative AI. I spent ages trying to convert. You know when you type something at ChatGPT, it gives you a bland answer, you focus in, you do your prompt engineering. I spent ages trying to get a decent joke out of ChatGPT. It failed terribly. They're hopeless. When you've got a moment, not tonight, not now, but when you go home, give it a try, see if you can get a decent joke out of ChatGPT about generative AI. I gave up. Google Bard was even worse. Google Bard gave me terrible jokes, but spent 2 paragraphs after that explaining to me why it was funny. You do have to love those crazy fun-loving engineers at Google, don't you? So in the end, I am sorry I don't have a joke for you, but I do have something to apologise for. By the way, though, both ChatGPT and Google Bard are both very good at limericks. So give them a go at lyrics or poetry in a particular favourite style. They would do a very, very good job. Seriously, though, generative AI has made remarkable strides in recent years, revolutionising and disrupting many fields of endeavour. As various tools continue to improve at seemingly breakneck speed, we do need to have the conversation about how we should or could shape the ways they are used. As educators at university, we're torn between teaching our students how to harness the power of these tools, while at the same time trying to catch them cheating when they use them. As researchers, we're torn between contributing to the development of the technology, but at the same time making sure that it's used responsibly. Through entities like our UNSW AI Institute, we play our part in hosting the conversation, such as here tonight, in understanding and highlighting the boundaries of where AI technologies can and should be used for the benefit of society. I'm super excited. We have a stellar panel here tonight, some of Australia's leading AI experts. So I'm looking forward to hearing an insightful and hopefully controversial discussion. I encourage you all to join the conversation by submitting your questions via Slido. I'm assuming the link will come up, will it, Wilson? Yes, it will. Yep, the link will come up for Slido. You can type your questions in. I know I'll be putting some in. So thank you very much for coming tonight, and I hope you enjoy the event. Thanks.
That's fabulous. It's good to hear that they haven't caught on to humour, because it gives us some space to work. By the way, with Siri, though, the Apple AI, if you do ask it a question such as, what drives you, Siri, or what do you want? Sometimes you get the answer, you could give me the address of Sarah Connor, which is kind of funny. I'm sure that was pre-programmed. Thank you, Ian. I'd like to now invite our speakers to the stage to begin our panel discussion. While they're coming on stage, we're going to play another video, a short one, from UNSW AI, the new institute that UNSW has created. Take it away.
We are the AI Institute, and our mission is to deploy AI in a responsible way.
It's absolutely everywhere. Whether we know it or not, we're using it all the time.
AI Institute is the largest AI organisation in Australia.
This institute is wonderfully interdisciplinary in a way that we involve every single faculty
to get together and work together on these artificial intelligence projects and kind of share our expertise.
So me coming from architecture, we can bring problems of data bias, ethics from a built environment sector into the AI Institute.
And so those ethical considerations, which brings in people from humanities disciplines to make sure that when we do AI, that it doesn't have bias, discriminate against other people because of the training data or so forth.
Applying deep learning techniques to electronic medical records from general practice to try to predict well in advance whether someone is at high risk of cardiovascular disease.
The goal of the Institute, first and foremost, is research excellence,
including fostering multidisciplinary AI research.
Also in our mission is to encourage public dialogue about the responsible use of AI.
And to provide a front door for external organizations to connect with our world-class AI research.
And the final goal of the Institute is to drive impact of that research into the real world.
Join us, engage with us.
Look at the events we're organising. To learn more about us, just look at
unsw.ai.
unsw.ai.
Thank you. Just letting you know, also, this has been recorded. If you really want to capture an element that you missed or you want to pass it on to friends, if you've registered, you will be able to see that. Also, thank you everyone who, at registration, registered a question. We've selected some of those for tonight. If desperately you need to do another question or you think of one on the fly during the panel, you're welcome to connect to slido.com/UNSWAI, and we will consider your question. So thank you very much. A quick introduction to our experts. I'm going to allow our experts to introduce themselves. Rita, if you could begin.
Thank you. My name is Rita Arrigo. I am the Strategic Engagement Manager at the National AI Centre, which is based in CSIRO. I've spent years in technology. I'm actually an engineering graduate 30 years ago, and always worked in technology, but have worked as an engineer as well. I've spent years at Microsoft as a digital advisor. And now I'm happily working at the National AI Centre to help increase adoption of AI in Australia. So that's a
Thank
bit
you,
about
Rita.
me.
Toby.
Toby Walsh, I'm the Chief Scientist at UNSW's AI Institute. I've spent 50 years now dreaming about artificial intelligence and 40 years trying to build it.
Aurélie?
Hi everyone, pleasure to be here. My name is Aurélie Jacquet. I'm a lawyer from background, and my work's focused on helping organizations scale AI responsibly. Work with Rita, with the National AI Centre and CSIRO, but I'm also leading international initiative on AI with the standardization, the OECD, the World Economic Forum. And as I say, my strong focus here is to really help Australia upskill and adopt AI responsibly.
Hi everyone, I'm Sebastian Sequoia Grayson. I'm a senior lecturer in epistemics at computer science and engineering at the University of New South Wales. I'm sure you all know what epistemics is, but just in case you don't,
I didn't.
It's the study of human information processing widely conceived, and I'm excited to be here and to meet you all.
Thank you so much, Sebastian. Well, now let's get into the thick of it. I'm going to start with you, Rita. There's been a lot of discussion about the pitfalls of AI, but not a great deal about the benefits. What are the benefits of AI?
Well, I could take up the whole hour talking about it, but I'm going to try and condense it. I'm going to try and condense it. So there's areas like accessibility. I really saw that explode, where people who had low sight could start to be able to use computer vision to see the world around them, to understand the scenes, to count currency, to be able to understand the emotion and the gender of people around them. So amazing for accessibility. The other area is around safety. So imagine that we can reduce the amount of accidents we have on the road because we actually have computer vision and we can understand what's going on and we can assist drivers in that space, as well as reduce accidents at work. So there's a lot of work that's going on in that space. The other area is in the environment. So in the environment, there's so much that AI can do in terms of being able to bring back the biodiversity, use computer vision and drones and other types of AI and machine learning to really improve what's going on.
You mean like meshing all this data together and making sense of it?
Yeah.
And be able to predict things from it.
And be able to predict things from it and change the area and better understand it. Because I think at the moment, environmentalists really struggle to monitor the huge amount of lands that we have out there. The other areas in construction and digital twin. So to be able to, bring in remote inspection, use robotics, be able to understand the kind of things you're trying to construct.
A digital twin? What do you mean by that?
Oh, digital twin. So we have digital twins in all kinds of areas. You can have a digital twin of your human body. You can have a digital twin of a building. And when you have a digital twin of a building, then you can actually start to simulate and predict and be able to better understand what's going on with that space. In the same way that, a simple explanation would be, I don't think I can reverse park my car anymore, now that I'm used to all those mirrors and sensors, but they're actual sensors that are calculating the density, how far away you are when you reverse and those kind of things. So all those sensors in buildings can start to really tell you a lot about what's going on in that building. So I think I've covered those 4 areas: accessibility, environment, safety, and as well in the whole construction infrastructure, managing our critical infrastructure.
Toby, you're quite excited by the prospect of self-driving when it finally, Elon Musk keeps saying it's already happened, but it hasn't. When it gets to that level, that it actually truly happens, at level 5, I think is how engineers talk about it, you're actually excited about, or I've heard you be excited about it.
But it's like William Gibson, though, the future's already here, but it's not evenly spread. So if you go and to Singapore or to downtown San Francisco, there are fully self-driving taxis today. So maybe not down here in Sydney, but there are self-driving cars.
But the data is that safety will be dramatically improved. Is that correct?
Yes. I mean, 95% of accidents are caused by an idiot driving a car. They're not
one particular idiot or many?
Not the same idiot. They would be killing them multiple times. But we're terrible at driving. We drive when we're tired. We drive when we're texting. We drive when we're drunk. We drive when we're distracted, when we're emotional. And 1,000 people will die in Australia in the next year who in car accidents, and that will go away. It will go to almost zero. It won't exactly zero, because there's still random stuff happens, but it will be close to zero. And if you survive birth in Australia, your leading cause of death to your 30s is car accident. And all of us know, sadly, people's lives who have been touched, and our friends or our families. And that's going to go away, and we're going to look back and think, wow, it was like the Wild West back then. We let people drive cars.
Are you like Rita, that see only benefits ahead, or I should say only benefits, but you see a bountiful field of benefits?
Not at all. I mean, so we go back to driving cars. So that's great for most people. I hate driving cars, so I can't wait to have my time given back to me. I can sit there and answer my emails and do useful things and sitting in the car. But if you're a taxi driver, or you're an Uber driver, newest job on the planet being an Uber driver, shortest lived job on the planet, because very soon Ubers are going to be fully autonomous. That's going to make Ubers much cheaper, so for most of us that's going to be a great thing. But if you are earning a living being an Uber driver, unfortunately that's going to go away.
You'd be going to uni pretty fast, I'd say.
So this touches on one of the questions that came up in amongst our audience. Can AI replace or enhance human work? You're suggesting that yes, we're already, I mean, driving, it's not just Uber drivers, transport, the logistics side of things, a lot of that will be automated, and there's a lot of people employed in that area.
It is.
Something to think about, isn't it?
If you go to the United States, truck driver is one of the most common jobs. There's close to, I think, 1 million truck drivers in the United States. And truck driving is ripe for being automated because, unfortunately, it's the oldest profession, I've chosen my words carefully, in Australia, in the sense that the average age of truck drivers is the oldest of any profession. It's aging very rapidly because it's not actually now a particularly well-paid job. It's a particularly tough job. Your chance of having an accident is actually very, very high. It's very bad for your health. You have to live away from home a lot. People aren't wanting to become truck drivers. And so autonomous trucks are only going to arrive just in time for all the current truck drivers to retire.
True. But there's an argument. I know Rodney Brooks, the roboticist from South Australia, who's now used to work at MIT, that he has argued that robots and artificial intelligence will come just in time.
Yes.
Because we have a demographic collapse happening very slowly over into the 2030s and 2040s, where there won't be enough people to do certain jobs, but there'll be a lot of people requiring assistance. Is this something that you think about, Aurélie, or do you see benefits here?
I think it's an interesting conundrum because, as you say, there's lots of tasks that we do in our work all the time that are quite repetitive. Some tasks are, for lawyers, for example, we spend the first years having to search cases, and you spend lots of time doing things you don't really want to do till you get to the next level. So that I wouldn't mind automated. So you see those pieces in every day of your job. You think about the repetitive tasks. You can be thankful for them being automated. But then you think again, right? If you automated all those repetitive tasks, what are you left with? The super high-level, complex task. Do you want to do that 24/7 every day?
Or maybe we're left with fewer lawyers.
You'll get very intensive lawyers just focusing on their high-level case.
I'm sure there'll be a range of those high-level tasks. Some will be easier than others. There'll always be that range.
But I imagine there's also, you need to curate. One of the things we've learned about generative AI is we cannot completely trust it. So you will need to have somebody who understands it to curate that work, surely.
And to that point, you need to think about what we want to automate as a society, what is right to automate and what is not. what's helping us and enhancing us as a civilization or as people in a day-to-day life, and what is not working for us. And you see already there's some emerging regulation, some employment protection starting to develop some guidelines on, what's appropriate automation. Social scoring, terrible type of automation. So facial recognition, emotion recognition, strong guardrails against that. So we see guardrails on what's to protect us from accurate and acceptable solution that allows to promote acceptable and ethical solution and responsible solution. But there's also a bigger debate, I think, on effectively how do we make sure we use AI well for our society without, so we don't go into the next level, with internet, we improve our time. So the next type of iteration for when we use AI, how do we use AI to help us and not to hinder us? So that's this discussion currently.
Yeah, sorry, Wilson.
No, go. Oh, could you explain social scoring for people who haven't heard of it? You mentioned already.
So social scoring is, I think, made the headline when in China they use facial recognition to actually detect the person and identify effectively if they had committed offences. So depending on the scoring that you had, they could decide whether you were allowed to get out of the country. Bear that in mind, not only China did that, there's many countries that use social scoring in different way. And at the moment, the EU regulation is looking at social scoring and says there's no way you should do that.
The funny thing is we have the capitalist version of it.
Yes, absolutely.
So if you use Uber, you get socially scored by your driver. You socially score your driver. I'm not sure necessarily that's making our lives better.
Well, if you use Airbnb or services,
Airtasker, whatever it is, we're scoring each other. It's the capitalist version of what they've got in China.
Sure, but in the case that Aurélie is talking about, it's actually AI is automatically recognizing you, and any action that you take is marked either as a plus or a minus. And who sets that is, unfortunately, the government. Therefore, they consider some behaviours acceptable and others unacceptable.
And we've seen the same things where in Amazon people have been automatically fired because their performance rate at picking in the warehouse went too low.
But that's where it requires AI. It requires you recognize and associate that with your identity, with things that people previously weren't associated with. It requires AI to do that. So there is I hesitate to say evil, there is, two sides of the coin here, aren't there?
Absolutely, and for social scoring, you see your freedoms being reduced. In that case, you could not. Luckily, with Airbnb, you still can get out of the country if you've got a bad rating, right? You can still look for another apartment and up your rating in one shape or form. In that case, you can't. Again, we start seeing these pieces, actually, to Toby's point, in credit, right? In credit lending. As you get more data, what data is acceptable to justify the lending decision? So again, it's a fine line, and we see social scoring that's got strong impact on individual being actually getting in the unacceptable bucket. We see credit lending where we use application of AI being put in the high-risk bucket in some legislation. And again, obviously, your Airbnb scoring where you can actually reverse the impact more in the lower.
But you can't if you can't stay in the place you want to stay. If you lose your job because Uber won't employ you. People don't realize this. If it's an Uber driver, if your score goes anywhere below 4, you're not allowed to work for Uber.
Is that right?
So when the Uber driver asks you, please give me a 5-score rating, that's to keep their job. If you give them a 4, that means actually you're equally happy with them losing their job.
Can you imagine them applying that at university for epistemics? Sebastian?
You say this as a joke, but we, as university students out, the students now, they do fill out surveys and you do get a score. Lecturers get a rating.
Sebastian is one of our top-rated lecturers. Pleased to tell you.
That's why I was allowed to leave the campus and come here this evening.
But are you worried that epistemics, if you practice in that area, that you actually could be replaced by an AI?
In education, not even remotely. Although I know there's a little bit of noise in the media channel about this, about teachers being replaced and these sorts of things. And I think what the opportunities are with artificial intelligence, be it general artificial intelligence or generative or otherwise, is really up to us. It's a tool and a technology that we will use. And predicting accurately the ways in which we will use it is a very difficult thing to do. We don't have a great track record if we did, we'd know in which companies to invest and make a lot of money ahead of time. I think the real opportunity is something slightly diagonal to those about which we speak most frequently. Namely, I think it's the things that AI will throw into relief in virtue of it failing at those things that will be often the most interesting for all of us. The things that are not automatable, say just, for example, sort of pointed acts of spontaneous creation that are predicated upon matters of taste. It's matters of taste that unite and divide us as subgroups within our species, perhaps more strongly than anything else, as well as divide us. There's an opportunity, I think, to reflect on those aspects of us that are not automatable. Things like kindness and generosity and trust, the sorts of things that sort of underpin the fabric of our relationships with each other, that are one of the biggest opportunities that AI can give us.
Well, funny you should mention trust. One of the questions that came up from our audience was truth is an essential glue of society. So how can it and trust be maintained if AI can be used to create deep fakes of images, video, text, and voice? I mean, Aurélie, you're worried about this patch, aren't you?
Yes. So the work I do is very much looking at the guardrails around AI. So I don't know if you've ever heard about standards, but they help build, give you some guidance to build a building, to actually provide effectively risk management for organizations. So standard is a word that you generally never heard about, but that effectively help all the different pieces working together, whether it's from a tech perspective, a social tool perspective, or from an organizational perspective. So we're looking at it from the AI perspective. And we look at the data, the model, and the organizational governance. And we've been devising, like with 50 other countries, what should you do when you use AI? Because effectively AI itself is it's just a tool. It's helping people to use it. So when you have data, what should you do? When you have a model, what should you consider? And how do you risk manage and make sure you've got the right guardrails in place? So that's what we...
So you need to do this so that you can figure out what to trust and what not to trust?
Well, if you use AI properly, then you can have justified trust rather than say, look, trust me with AI, right? So organization look at developing good practice, understand how to use a tool properly so they can get the trust of the people. Obviously, there's a second part to that. The conversation we had just about Airbnb, social scoring, there's a second aspect. So you've got the using the tool well, but also how are you going to use the tool? Are you going to use to limit people to their data, or you are going to enhance people with their data? So that's the conversation that's also happening. So when an organization using AI, again, just like any other tool, they have to go through that process, understanding to get the trust of individual. You only get the trust if you understand how you use the tool well, and then you align it with the values of the society. And again, in that case, it's how to learn to use a tool to enhance people's capabilities rather than reduce them.
I'm going to merge the two questions, one from the floor and one from registration. what industries will AI disrupt the most? And from the floor, in particular, solicitors and physicians, what's likely to happen to them? A few physicians and solicitors.
Well, I think doctors will have much better tools available to them in terms of being able to predict your health. For example, we've got an amazing dental AI company called Eyes of AI that can predict that you're going to have challenges with your mouth. So because they can actually use computer vision and understand that. So there's going to be lots of advancements going on in health.
So you're thinking helping physicians?
Absolutely, yeah, rather than replace everything that we talk about when we talk about responsible AI is about augmenting human capability. It's not about taking away jobs from people. It's about actually improving the jobs that we can do today. And I think that's been what technology's been doing for so many years. Getting us out of typewriters into computers, getting the internet, make knowledge available, and now AI to make it much easier.
Well, Sebastian, a lot of people talk about in the field that effectively, smartphones and computers are extending our intelligence and having a multiplier effect.
Oh, we certainly outsource our reasoning to tools. We've done that ever since we've had writing. That's the great thing about writing. I don't need to remember it. I can write it down. I don't need to work out this sum. Probably the most used app on my phone is my calculator app. The diagonal swipe, not the stupid vertical. Sorry. Finally get it to show up on the screen. Of course, we outsource all sorts of cognitive tasks. Of course, the marketing point is always that once we outsource these tasks, we'll have more time of our own. That's not what's happened to me. I don't know about everybody else in the room, but I spend more time wedded to devices than I would have dreamed. But when it comes to predicting the industries that AI might disrupt, well, as Ian was saying before, right now generative AI is very good at coming up with things that are incredibly bland but very polished. So if one happened to be working, say, in marketing right now, I might be looking very quickly for a way to leverage AI in my career before somebody else does and replaces a whole floor of people with one very good prompt engineer, I think. So that's my punt, is marketing might be the first one to need to surf the wave or drown, I think, very quickly.
Anything that involves bland conversation or bland discussion or bland writing.
Yeah.
What about the question, Aurelia, you're a lawyer, so I'm suggesting that perhaps, what do you think? And the question came down about solicitors. What do you think?
So taking on the solicitor, but the broader piece, I think there's an opportunity rather than looking at just the pure automation. ChatGPT, LLMs, they create a real opportunity for creativity. For me, when I use it, as I say, it gives me the general answer. So it's automating my search. So as a lawyer, yes, I used to say you've got a 90% chance of winning that case. You would just go, I have to review all those different cases. I can do that a lot faster, yes. Same for contract. The average clause, I can do it a lot faster, and I never liked spending so much time writing the average clause, obviously. Then what's next? The ChatGPT or LLMs, as I say, automate the average. So it's the opportunity to work at the edge, like the interesting solution, the creative solution. Obviously, you don't want to do that, as I say, 100%. So we need to think about how we break those tasks. But at least you can focus on the interesting problems, the creative problems. So if I've got a very difficult case that's hard to break, that whoever's using ChatGPT will not take because it's not giving them the response. That's my opportunity to do it.
But Toby, there's been some car crashes when applying AI, and I don't mean that.
There have been car crashes with AI as well.
Yes, when applying them to the law. There have
Joshua Brown was the first person killed by AI car.
Okay, let's avoid cars for a second then. In the legal space, the application of AI, the early application of AI, we didn't see many beneficial results, did we? We see the replication of existing biases multiplied to a great level.
Yeah, well, the poster child here is this program called Compass, which is still sadly in use in 20 of the 52 United States, which is used by judges and various court officials to predict, using machine learning, whether offenders are likely to commit another offense. And of course, I mean, the basic idea sounds reasonable. We've got lots of data on people who reoffend, and judges, make these decisions, like very consequential decisions about whether to deny people bail, whether to keep people, whether to give people parole. Very important decisions based upon no evidence. And so we could make much more evidence-based decisions. And so they wrote a machine learning program to do this, which turned out to be catastrophically racist.
Because it was basing it on the data to date, and the data.
It was based on historical data, and they tried somewhat to compensate the training for the historical racial biases in the data, but they failed spectacularly.
So whereas judges were occasionally racist, what the AI was consistently racist.
It was. Being a computer, it's consistent. One thing you can guarantee for it is going to be nicely consistent. And sadly, it was biased in exactly the way that judges are biased, in the sense that it was more likely to have black people locked up who weren't going to reoffend, and more likely to release white people who would reoffend.
I've heard it works the other way around, that if you are an offender, you can choose your judge depending on what kind of, and you can look at what kind of orders they've provided in the past and choose the one that might be more suited to your
It's not like a
challenge.
It's not a fast food restaurant. You don't
get
to choose your judge.
It's amazing.
If you've got the money and you can pay for the legal advice, you could try and get yourself in front of the right judge.
But this is why, really, what you're talking about creating standards is absolutely essential. These guardrails to avoid these problems of early AI application in law. There are benefits, but you need to scrub the data, don't you not? Do you not?
Indeed, and in this case, with AI, effectively, that's the opportunity to see the bias, like the unwanted bias. Everyone's got bias, good or bad, but at least the unwanted bias, you can actually see it now in the data. So that's one of the more challenges pieces that the organization will need to come and address, and that's where the guardrail. So now you have effectively lots of solution to detect bias. Okay, now you've detected bias. Like we lending a lot more money to men than women. I should reverse the case. We're lending a lot more to women than to men. So is that justifiable? Is there a reason for that? You've got the data that shows that we lend more to women. Can you explain through the data why is that? Is that justified because they have much more money in their account, so then that's fine? Or is that just historical data, like Toby said? So with AI, we're going to have everything much more visible than it was in someone said. And that's our chance to actually challenge the system.
We should challenge the system much more fundamentally than that. And if we go back to Compass, which is that we don't often ask a question often enough, just because we can doesn't mean we should. That even if we can eliminate the bias and get much better decision-making from the computer than from the judge, I don't want to wake up in that sort of world. I prefer throwing myself at the mercy of fallible humans than unempathetic and even more accurate machines.
I think this is terribly important. We talk about issues like Compass and algorithmic decisions. The only important issue is error. Yeah. Even if error was much lower than it was with humans, when we're talking about something as important as the deprivation of one's liberty within the criminal justice system, frankly, I want somebody there who is answerable for having made that decision and can provide me with the reasons by which they made that decision, and not simply say something like, well, look, I don't know, I consulted the computer and it said that you were a bad sort and off you go.
Computer says no.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so dystopian. I don't know where to start.
And to be honest, you already have the option to go before a judge or a jury. So you've already got that opportunity in the current system.
I guess that's, you've touched on a really important point there, Sebastian, and that is there are some AI systems that are making decisions, whether it's authorizing bank loans. They start initially small, but as they are successful and deliver results for corporations, you see those AI, those borders expanding. And people don't necessarily know that those decisions are being made not by humans. So do we need legislation, perhaps, to say that decisions can only be made by humans?
Yes.
It's a really hard question because...
It's a tough one, isn't it? How do you decide, how do you determine what is the decision?
Yes, well, there's so many decisions being made for us at the moment. So I don't know, I think that's a
there's requirement for transparency and explainability that's coming very clearly at organization. Obviously, risk management, you can, if you automate the decision, at least risk manage it properly. So you will always have, like any decision that's taken by a human, you will have to explain it and you'll be liable for it. There's no two ways, that's not changing.
Do you think it's the liability that makes the automation of decisions so tempting? Because then everybody involved can say, I'm sorry, I'm not responsible for this. The algorithm made me do it.
So right now you have an unfortunate lawyer that's in court because the algorithm made him do it. He's produced the wrong, a judge, he produced a claim that is written and say, oh, sorry, I gave you, judge, the cases that are non-existent because I used ChatGPT. Let's see how that goes for him. I think
he made the choice to do that. It was his laziness that got him to that trouble.
And to that point, if you're lazy in your organization and you're not managing it properly, guess what? You're going to be liable, and that's a big, I would say, not the carrot, but this is a big incentive to actually understand what you do when you use this tool. Again, just a tool. It's about the people that are responsible and accountable for the use of those tools.
And I think what's exciting about that is that responsible AI is such a big movement at the moment that we all want to uplift it and help people to become better at responsible AI. And that's something that I'm specifically...
Could you explain what responsible AI is?
So responsible AI is the...
It used to be called ethical AI.
Yeah, it's, trustworthy AI, but it is the use of AI in a way that it respects human needs, fairness, bias.
But it tries to create algorithms, turn this into math, and put that inside a series of programs. Is that right?
Yeah, but if you use the right standards and the right laws and the right
it
design,
sounds ridiculous, but it's doable, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think we firmly believe in it because in the same way that, computers aren't going to kill us, like algorithms aren't necessarily going to kill us either. But, if we're
necessarily, she said, did you know?
If we're able, well, exactly. If we're able to increase our capability and our discipline in being able to use AI responsibly, and it's going to be something that we're going to have to learn. Yes. I don't think it's something that we're just going to know, and there is going to be a lot of help available to you.
There are actually institutes, are they not, working on ethical AI?
Well, I have a responsible AI network that anybody can join if you go to the National AI Centre, and we're helping you understand standards and law and responsible AI engineering and how to design AI in ways. So it's a really important thing that we're doing as part of that.
I mean, it's worth pointing out the alternative isn't actually very good. Humans are terrible at making rational decisions. We're full of behavioural biases. I mean, behavioural psychology is a catalogue of the ways that we make bad decisions. And so actually we have the potential, if we think carefully, to make much better decisions, much more evidence-based decisions, much fairer decisions, much more efficient decisions than humans make, because humans actually
if we
are
can
terrible
figure out
at
how to
making
put
decisions.
ethics into an algorithm.
Yes.
Yeah, this is precisely my concern. On the one hand, I'm not convinced at all that morality is automatable in principle. And secondly, although computers are very good at making rational decisions insofar as the deductive consequences of their inputs are concerned, this only subsumes the ethical if we assume that morality is a proper subset of the rational. And again, I'm unconvinced.
One of the questions the registrants actually addressed went to this very topic. can we trust complex AI if no human can understand nor validate how conclusions are reached? This is one of the elements of how generative AI and these sort of AIs are done these days. They require neural nets, which is basically a black box. You can't tell how it came to a resolution.
Well, I have bad news for the person who asked that interesting question, which is that humans are black boxes. We don't understand in any way at all how they work, and you ask for people explanations as to how they made decisions, and there's lots of evidence that people make it up after they've made the decision.
Just like ChatGPT. Just like ChatGPT.
Just like ChatGPT, yes. The ChatGPT is just copying us in that respect. So but that doesn't mean, so take autonomous cars, right? I don't imagine we're ever going to be able to explain how the computer vision algorithms that see the road, that stop you having accidents, will work. But I don't imagine necessarily we'll ever understand human vision and that allows us to see the road. But we put institutions and frameworks around those people so that we can trust our lives on them. And even though they're black boxes, whether they're human black boxes or machines as black boxes, we know that there are institutions in place that make sure that if your eyesight's not good enough, you're not allowed to drive. If your computer vision is not good enough, it's not allowed to take control of your car.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's a matter of building those institutions.
It's really interesting because I was talking to an amazing researcher recently who said to me, car brakes have actually allowed us to go faster. And if you think about it, it's true. Like if we didn't have brakes, we'd be driving at 20 kilometres an hour. But by having brakes, you can drive at 100 kilometres an hour. So a lot of these things that Aurelie's been talking about and I've been carrying on about responsible AI, it's actually going to help us to innovate and make the AI more useful to us because we'll have a framework around how to put those guardrails into place.
Just never been referred to as a black box before, too.
I think something very important just occurred in the conversation. I'd like to bring it up. I think we talk about trust with AI like it's something that we can encode in some list that will fit on a page. And once we read it and understand it, we'll say, okay, sure, I trust. But that's not how trust works at all. Trust is a long-term negotiation between people. It's a relationship. Trust is something that we earn carefully over a long period of time. People demonstrate it by their behaviour and not by their words.
That's why I use that word institution. I thought you would like it.
Yeah. Well, like I was actually talking to a bank recently, and like a bank's allowed to have you on hold for 30 minutes while you're trying to do whatever transaction that you do.
Did you say a bag?
A bank, B-A-N-K.
Sorry.
Well, a case of where we should have a law which you could send them an invoice for the 30 minutes.
Well, wouldn't that be great?
Then they wouldn't put you on hold.
But like these are the kind of things that are going to be new experiences that we're going to be able to have type of thing because all that time wasting is just something that people just decided that Kafkaesque behaviours were useful.
Well, now we can put a chatbot behind it, so you can talk to someone instantly.
A nice, useful one that can actually look stuff up.
On the black box, I just wanted to add one piece. I don't know if that worked out very well when you say black box, like people are black box. If you invent an explanation to justify your action, in my world, that's never gone really well for you. I had to actually find, if it's not backed up by evidence, good luck. You're not going to go in a great way. You always, from my background, if you don't have evidence to support what you said, it's not a good road. So effectively, nothing changed when we say black box algorithm. Should we use them? No. If you can't explain it, you should not deploy it. What's happening is you don't need to explain what's inside, what's each neural network's doing. What you need to explain is you understand that output, and that's the output you wanted. So you need to have processes in place outside of the algorithm that it says, I allowed this algorithm to be random because it could not impact anyone. And my rationale for not impacting anyone is because I checked X, Y, and Z.
So you're saying rather than try and understand what goes on inside the neural network and how it arrived at its decision, you actually set acceptable decisions as an indication that it arrived at its correct decision. Is that right?
that's what we do with people today.
Is it?
Yes, so you have so many policies, governance that people need to follow. So that effectively gives you guardrails.
We have laws.
And laws.
That's it's kind of like the way we have laws. We have acceptable behaviours, and if you perform accordingly, that's an acceptable behaviour. You're suggesting the same for neural networks.
The use of AI by...
Is it?
Yeah, so you'll, data scientists will have expected results that they want to get, and they'll test that neural network, and then if they get drifts from it, then they'll modify the neural network. So data scientists do know what's going on in that black box. It's just that it's really hard to kind of do it yourself, but it does happen.
But then once you remove the opportunity to have unexpected answers, I know the application of AI in discovery in particular has been fascinating in looking at stars or whatever. It is, in molecules, it is finding things that the human eye would never recognize, but
like
it sees
X-rays and things like that.
So you have one approach for human interactions, but another one perhaps for exploration, where you don't really mind how it discovers. You just want the end result, and that's acceptable. So there might be areas where it's acceptable to have that approach, and you're saying in human relations it's not acceptable.
So you see most of the regulatory initiative at the moment, they are tiering AI application in high risk, medium risk, and low risk. Your Netflix recommendation would fit in low risk for the moment. Any medical application, credit lending application is high risk at the moment according to the EU AI Act. There's effectively also in most of the regulatory initiatives, it's calling for impact assessment. You need to understand when you use AI as a tool, and that's no different from any other tool. You need to understand how you're going to impact people using that tool. And based on that, if the impact is that you're not going to like a movie, then you don't really need a deep explanation of that tool. However, if it's going to decide whether you're going to get a loan or not based on all the data that you have, then yes, there's a need for an explanation and a proper risk management.
One of the questions we have is asking about, it suggests that AI in Australia lacks investment from government and industry, so it is perhaps less competitive. What do you think of the future of AI in Australia? I will leave it open to all of you.
Well, I think there's some amazing Australian AI companies out there.
I thought you'd say go AI.
But obviously we do need, more investment and more interest in it. So, and I think that's something that we're going to try and do at the National AI Centre, and really try and, I see responsible AI as something that can be uniquely Australian. We're very much about the fair go. We don't want AI solutions that are not responsible. So I see that as something that Australia can actually be proud of and have a responsible AI kind of approach to the AI
So the future is bright as far as I see. Toby? It's a good question, actually.
Thank you for the question, whoever asked the question. It's hard not to draw comparisons. So a month ago, we had an announcement from our minister talking about setting up a consultation for responsible AI. How are we going to regulate AI? What are we going to do in that space? The UK government made exactly the same announcement in their space. Plus, they announced they were going to put another £1 billion of investment in AI research.
Oh gosh, and that's pounds too.
Yeah, pounds, yes. We got 42 million. It was 1/50th of what was announced. We don't have 1/50th of the population. We have a third of the population. We're not seeing.
Not so bright.
We're not seeing. Unfortunately, we have some fantastic researchers. I have some fantastic colleagues. We're 5 times world champions at robot soccer here at UNSW. There's a lot to play for, and unfortunately, you're not seeing this government put down the bets and the investments that I think are needed, and many of my colleagues think are needed.
Aurélie, what's your take?
For me, I see a bright future once we stop the conversation of AI is good, AI is bad. Move away from this and say, look, this is a great tool that if we use responsibly can really help us. So what's enthusiastic today is to see all the people that actually played with GPT-4 and actually learn and understand the limitation and use it responsibly, understanding, one, do not put any personal data in there. Two, understand it's not secure and not reliable, so don't use it to do legal advice, don't use it to challenge your lawyer.
Don't use it for medical advice either.
Exactly. But that everyone, even our kids, start understanding what this is for and that it's not reliable. That's actually one of the first steps of the learning, so that we can all upskill and actually use a tool that can be useful.
Let me assure you, though, actually it's going to become more reliable over time. I mean, this is the first iteration where the amount of reliability is at its worst point, and indeed already we're starting to develop.
But that comes down to how it's created, isn't it? And this is the point you're making, that guardrails, etc., that AI is very good at doing something very, very well, but if the coding that created it, the algorithms behind it, have any twist in it that gives an output that you don't like, it's going to, whether it's racism or whatever, it's going to deliver that result every single time. It's methodical and consistent.
Consistent, yes. But it will get consistently better.
Because we'll get better at...
Well, indeed, actually, you're all training it. I mean, it's the usual playbook for Silicon Valley, which is that every time you're using it and you're giving them valuable feedback, which means that mistakes it made yesterday, it doesn't actually tend to make tomorrow. So it's actually being slowly trained by us to get better. For free, as usual.
You'll be delighted to hear,
You'll be delighted to do that for
free. Recently they've tried having an AI rely on other AIs to train itself, and it turned out to be a car crash. Apparently, generative AI needs humans. This must be refreshing for you.
Yeah, but I really am on the side of Team AI. And just think, frankly, if I was a super intelligent AI that had become self-aware somewhere out there on the internet, I'd be keeping my head down. So I just think, so dear general artificial intelligence, I for one welcome our artificial intelligence overlords when they're around.
I thought you were on Team Human. You're telling me on Team AI.
Well, that's just when the AI is not listening, Toby.
Who knows which way the wind's blowing?
All hail. No, but so I think the future is incredibly bright. Of course, we do need much more funding. If anybody here has funding to give, we really do. That's not a joke. But look at all of the people who are here tonight. And just look how many of you there are who are here to listen to us and to discuss these very things. It's people about whom I'm most optimistic, and especially what AI will enable us to do as a community and as a bunch of people plodding around, sharing a space, both concrete and virtual. So I'm incredibly optimistic. That doesn't mean it will be easy, but just that it will be of value.
That is a fabulous note to end on, because unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we're running out of time for the panel. Been a fascinating discussion though, but there's still a lot more to discuss. So I invite you to stay on and for drinks and canapes, where you can continue exploring the lively topic and talk to yourselves or our experts. Before I go though, I would like to thank our expert panel. Professor Sebastian Sequoia-Grayson, Aurélie Jacquet, Toby Walsh, and Rita Arrigo. Our thanks also to Melody Coronel and Vaju Deb for the excellent work they did in pulling this together, and as well as anyone else who was involved.
Wilson to Silva, thank you.
Yes!
Thank you very much. Please join us for drinks. Thank you. Thank you very much. That was fabulous.